Whereas Sasquatch, being a large-bodied ape, it's similar to other large-bodied apes, 45 to 60 years. 45 to 60 years. 45 to 60 years.
New ways that they call it Bigfoot.
Well, okay. As you can tell by the title, can a Sasquatch, Bigfoot live 1,000 years or longer? Who knows? Do we really know? Well, that's what I decided to talk about on this video. Yeah, I'm always seeing these people, you know, Bigfoot experts, whatever, talking about, you know, you got to have a breeding population. And then, yeah, for most animals you do, because most animals don't live that long. So, but I got to, you know, thinking, I've thought about this for a long time, you know, because the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomena, whatever you want to call it, the cryptids or whatever, you know, you can either believe it or you can't. You know, until they really provide a body or some really great evidence of something, it's always going to be where most people ain't going to believe it. I'm at the thing where, yeah, it's very strange that, you know, in this day and time that we don't have more evidence or whatever. But then I got to thinking, you know, okay, what if there's just so few of them? I mean, there's literally just a few of them left, maybe. Different parts of the world. Maybe at one time there were lots more. I believe there probably were, if they existed. Of course, there's the whole thing with Gigantopithecus, which, from everything I can tell, you know, it did supposedly exist, this great ape-type creature, 9-10 foot tall. Basically, from what everything shows, it went extinct about 200,000 years ago, which, when you think about, you know, what most scientists believe the Earth is, or whatever, millions and millions of years, that's like nothing. You know, 200,000 years is basically nothing. Now, if you go by other people, Bible scholars or whatever, which they don't really know for sure. I mean, you know, some people think it's 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 years is all it is, and some people I read, you know, heard people, you know, like that. Well, that's from like Noah, you know, that many years. Nobody really knows, like, well, how long did it exist before that? I don't know. I don't think nobody really knows. But if you go by scientific things and all this stuff, you know, then you know, looking at it took millions of years to form, all this stuff. Now, so okay, so let's just say. Here's another thing. I mean, as far as the Bigfoots, I mean, I believe there was something, and possibly still is, because it's just been there. I mean, when you look at the history of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, I mean, it's been named all kinds of names all across the world. Almost every country has had or does have reports of some type of wild man, hairy, ape-looking creature, man-looking creature, but looks like an ape, whatever. Some of them are big, some of them are not that big, some of them are fairly, you know, 6-7 foot tall, about like a man. Some of them, you know, like 10 foot tall, whatever. Well, so it kind of depends on the location, wherever. You know, here I am in Louisiana. Most of the reports down here is no bigger than 7 foot tall most of the time, if we get reports. The Honey Island swamp monster, there are different ones in Louisiana. You know, you got the Momos. You got all kinds of names all across this country that people have seen, talked about for years, ever since basically a white man came to this country. Of course, the Native Americans, almost every one of them had their stories and their stuff about a wild, hairy, man-type beast. Of course, out in the Northwest, California, Oregon, it was in that area, or whatever. It was the Indians call it Sasquatch, and that's the one that's the big name or whatever, because that's where it all kind of started from. You know, the main reports back 100 years ago or whatever. But there's been, like I said, you can find all kinds of in cave walls, and there's all kinds of strange humanoid creatures that look way bigger than the drawings of them. And most of the time with Native Americans, they drew kind of what they seen. They drew what their hunt was. That was their stories. That's how they told their stories, and it was just passed down, you know, that they all knew to, like, there's a creature out there. Sometimes the stories are it was friendly with them. Sometimes not so friendly. Sometimes they just knew it was out there. Kind of leave it alone. They left you alone. All that kind of stuff. There's been all kinds of stories, but it's like in all over the world, it's kind of the same thing, you know. And this has been going on for, you know, recorded history, basically. So I find it hard to believe that everybody in the world, all these people just make it up, or they're just seeing things, or, you know, I believe that tons of things you see, especially when you're in the woods, especially with twilight hours, whatever. I've been in the woods a lot, and there's sometimes things you see, and you're like, what is that, you know? And your mind can play tricks on you and stuff like that. But there's a lot of people who've been out in the woods a lot, and they hunt a lot, they do a lot of things, and they see things, and they're like, there's no way that was a bear. There's no way that was, you know, a tree stump, whatever, you know, there was no way, you know. And, you know, police officers, all kinds of people all across the world have seen things and reported them, you know. And so I'm kind of like, okay, even if 99.9% of it is something, you know, they see it or whatever, there's still that 0.1% or 1% or whatever you want to call it that is not explainable. And if it's not explainable, if you cannot explain it, then you have to say there's a possibility. You know, I don't care what you say, scientifically or whatever you want to say. If there is that little bit of doubt or whatever, then you have to say, yeah, there's a possibility that the things exist. You can't just like flat out say, because I don't care who you are, scientists or whatever, you can't just say, no, they do not exist. There's no proof of it. Well, there's a lot of proof, you know, goes on for years, and until it comes forward, they're like, oh, crap, it does exist, or whatever it is, you know. This animal people, natives have seen for years, whatever it is, some kind of deer or whatever it is, you know. And people are like, yeah, it doesn't exist, and blah, 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 blows it off. Then all of a sudden, poof, 100 years later, it shows up, or whatever, 50 years later, or whatever. And then they're like, oh, crap, whatever, you know. So you can't ever say that definitively, that everybody is making it up. Everything's a hoax. Everything is bull crap, you know. You just can't do it. Everything's fake, whatever. It's impossible. There's always going to be that little slither of, you know, could be 10%, whatever it is, you know. But if there's any doubt that there is, I mean, I know people are going to say, I know, it's bull crap, you know, there's no way there existed and all that kind of stuff, you know. And that's, yeah, I mean, if you want to believe that, fine, or whatever, you know. People think the world is still flat. Like, really? I mean, the world is not freaking flat. It's been proven. I mean, whatever you want to come up with, it's crap. And I know people are going to get pissed if anybody watches this video at all. But, you know, people are going to get pissed about it. Call me names, but whatever you want to do, I don't care. You know, I just say, this is the way I feel about it, and you can have your own feelings about whatever. You know, if that's what you want to do, think about that. I 100% know. I don't know how you could be 100% knowing that something does not exist when you have no proof of it not existing, and there's no proof. Technically, there's more proof of it existing than there is proof of not existing, in my opinion. But I still have my doubts. I mean, there's a lot of things about it that, like, you know, why hasn't it been seen more? Why is it there, you know, more evidence? All this kind of stuff. But then I got thinking, well, if it's so rare, you know, when you think about, okay, everybody's, it's like 8 to 10 foot tall creature. I don't know if it's that tall or not. People have a tendency to exaggerate things. When they say a fish is, they catch a fish this big, and by the time it gets down the road to 3 neighbors or whatever, the fish is 10-pound bass and whatever, you know. That's just the way humans are. We've always been like that. People have always told stories, and that's one other reason, it's kind of in human nature to tell stories. But most stories are somewhat based in fact most of the time, you know. So stories that are passed down, at some point it was probably somewhat truthful, like somebody seen something or whatever. It may get exaggerated, and then now it's a 9 or 10 foot tall creature or whatever. It may only be a 7 foot tall. I don't know, but until you, like you said, produce a body, and nobody's gonna know. Oh, here it is, a 9 foot tall ape man or whatever. Here it is, And then everybody's gonna be, oh crap, here I've been saying that there's nothing existed like this, and then you've been proven wrong. So you can't ever say no. There's not whatever. So I got thinking about the length of time. We always, people want to put things in a category of what they see or know. Okay, so like we know man of today. Basically, I have a life expectancy of 75 to 85 years generally. Very rarely it goes much over that. My dad is 96. He's going almost 100 years. The oldest living human, I believe, of a recorded history of, in the last 150, 200 years or whatever is 122. You got to remember, recorded history doesn't go back that far, really. Most like really factual recorded history. Yes, there's things wrote in books maybe 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, and it's pretty close. That's a lot of history there and stuff like that. But a lot of times details about things, gets mixed up and screwed around and whatever. It's just the way it is. That's just the way humans are. Humans making mistakes. Humans don't tell the truth. Humans exaggerate. All that kind of stuff. They embellish stories to make things look better, feel better, seem better, whatever, to tell their story most of the time. That's just the way we do. That's just in human nature. But let's just say that, because we know there are animals on this planet today that have long lives. I was looking up, there is a jellyfish. It basically lives indefinitely. It can regenerate its body parts, and basically it can live forever. There's a sponge. I had to write some of this down so I could tell you about it. Ocean sponges that live for thousands of years. There is some whales, sharks can live for hundreds of years. And tortoises, like the Galapagos tortoise or whatever, 150 to 200 years that we know of. You got to remember, I don't remember when the Galapagos Islands were found, but I'm sure there was turtles on there, tortoises or whatever, on there at the time. And how old were they? I don't know. They just discovered the island, so they don't really know how old they were or how long they lived. You basically guessing it. Probably on average they do sweat, but you never know. There could be some that live way longer than that. I don't know. There's a pine tree. There's a certain pine tree somewhere in the world. I forgot what it's called. 4,800 years old, if they estimate. I don't know how they can estimate that. I guess they can look at I don't know, unless they chop it down, but it's a living tree. But yeah, there's things in this world that live a long time, and then there's history. If you want to go back to biblical times or Bible times, in the Bible, a lot of people lived 900,000 years. There's several of them, in the Old Testament or whatever, lived that long. Now you can, I know people are going, I don't believe that, whatever, but you can believe it or you can't believe it, whatever. But that's just what it says. And there are people that live a long time, and so then there's the deal with the Nephilim, I think they're called, the giant creature man type thing. There's a thing where there's a fallen angel mated with females, and the offspring were called these, and they were giant, and they were horrible most of the time, whatever, different stories about it, but they existed supposedly, and some people say they were wiped out with the flood. Some people say they didn't. That's up to whatever you want to believe, I guess. But I'm not going to get into like Bible theory and beliefs and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just saying what's recorded, people, have written down or whatever, or have supposedly seen or whatever. So there's that, and they live a long time. There's, like I said, there's animals today that live long. So who's to say a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or whatever? Who's to say that they don't live 1,000 years? Maybe they live longer. I don't know. I mean, we don't. There's not a set thing of because it's a great ape type creature. A great ape, a general like a mountain gorilla or whatever, they live like 35 to 50 years. That's about the maximum live. I think the oldest one was like 60 years old when it died. And but they don't live that long, really, And that's what we consider the closest thing to what a Bigfoot, Sasquatch is or whatever, is something like that. Which they supposedly resemble that, the ape type thing. I mean, we're close to the ape too. So, but that's just what people picture or whatever, I don't know if that's, what they're actually seeing, some type of giant ape. Is it some type of actual humanoid creature? I'm pretty open to all of the things, even the interdimensional stuff. Who knows? What people can, what things we just don't know about. But then like I said, if something can live that long, then there doesn't have to be maybe at one time there was a breeding population, but if they're 1,000 years old, maybe there's not enough of them to breed anymore. They're just still living, and eventually they'll all die off, at some point. I'm sure they probably have a life expectancy at some point. But let's just say, some of them may live 900 years, 800 years. Some of them may live 1,500 years. I don't know. It's kind of like humans do. But if they do that, then, and at a certain point, like humans and most animals, they have, like humans, basically we have a reproductive time, the female usually, of anywhere from young teenage years up till, I don't know, 40-ish is basically when most women go through menopause, I assume, 50, 45, 50, 40, and that's ever. So, 30, 35 years is where you can produce children or whatever for a human, which is about, a little less than half your life expectancy, I guess, something like that. But, so let's just say that's the same thing with, say, a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. So let's say if they live 1,000 years, say for 350 years, they can still have children, babies, little baby Bigfoots or whatever. But if, like I said, if they've been gradually dying off by whatever's causing it, disease, pestilence, whatever you want to call it, just the encroachment of man, environmental things, anything could be causing them to get less. And maybe there wasn't that many to begin with. I don't know. At one time maybe there was 1,000, 2,000 in the whole country, in the whole United States or less. And that's been gradually done. But you got to figure, let's just say there's 500 of them left in the United States. 500. As big as this country is, you know how easy it is for 500 people to get lost and never be found in this country, the wildernesses and stuff. It's super simple. 500 people could get lost and you may not ever find them. If they will not want to get found, they probably could not be found. Especially when, there's not really a thing where lots of people are out looking for Sasquatch or Bigfoot. We don't have like big, groups of whatever. I mean, there's people that go out and look for them. Some of them are more quacks than anything, but some of them just do it for, views, whatever, I believe, but there's some like the legit stuff, the studies of it. And, like at the beginning of this, I have Jeff Meldrum. I've been watching him for years. He's real smart on the subject, especially the footprints and stuff. And he pretty easily can tell the difference between like something that's faked and what ain't. So, I mean, something makes the footprints. I don't know what it is. I mean, when I see these pictures and people like they have one footprint. Oh, I seen one foot. Well, I mean, is this the magical Sasquatch? It dropped in from the air and put one footprint down? No. I mean, if there's one footprint somewhere, there's generally going to be more in a trackway somehow, somewhere. You're not just going to see one footprint in a soft area in the mud or whatever. One perfect little footprint. Especially, right there beside it. There should be a left and a right, unless it's hopping on one foot and it can hop one time and be gone. I don't know, but then then I got to thinking about let's say it does live, so they're very rare. Like say in a certain area. So let's just say here in Louisiana, I'm gonna say maybe there's 2 in the whole state living in swamps in the back. I don't know if anybody's ever been in a swamp, but there's one little area here, a lake, that I went out there one time in a boat, and it ain't that big, and I was scared to death after a little bit. I was trying to figure out how to get out of that place, and I just had to go in one direction. I got to go in one direction. Eventually, I'll come somewhere. That's basically what I did. But luckily, I came out pretty close to where I'd put in at. But it's very easy to hide or whatever, and really not that small of area. Now, you do have to have food. I mean, looking it up, a 7 or 8 foot tall creature like that probably weighs somewhere around 500 pounds or something, which is about what a black bear weighs, a male black bear, and a lot of people will put that, what a black bear, because supposedly what a Bigfoot eats, what they believe is similar to what a bear will eat. Omnivorous, kind of eats whatever. I mean, you can eat, live animals, berries, fruits, nuts, dig up stuff, grubs, whatever, worms, all kinds of stuff. Eat dead animals carrying, all kinds of things like that to get their calorie intake. And so I was looking it up, what a 500-pound human, if somebody says there ain't nobody, but let's just say you have an 7, 8 foot tall human. I mean, there are some people that are over 7 foot tall, but anyway, basically they have to eat, to keep up their weight, they have to eat about 5,000 or so calories a day. It depends on what they're doing and all that kind of stuff, but 5,000 calories, it really is not that much. I mean, but you do have to have a little bit of area that you're, when you're foraging for food, and even if it's just one of you, most people want to think, oh, it's a group of them. It has to be a 20 or 30 of them. Yeah, 20 or 30 of them all together, different ages, looking around, trying to find food. It is a lot more difficult. One, not that much. I got to looking up some things. It's like a rabbit. One rabbit weigh approximately 3 pounds. And of course, if it's a Bigfoot or Sasquatch, they're not going to sit there and skin it and cook it up and all this stuff. No, they're just going to rip it apart and eat it raw, because as far as we know, they don't have the capability of making fire, that we don't believe. I mean, otherwise we'd probably spot them a long time ago. Because man we leave a large footprint by the stuff we do generally. You don't have to, but most people do. But anyway, if they eat the whole rabbit, basically, this is not even eating the bones, because you have the marrow in the bones that you can eat, but just a 3 pound rabbit for about 1,500 calories just for that one rabbit. But anyway, I got to look it up stuff like a pound of acorns, about 1,700 calories plus for a pound of acorns. This is like, deer eat them. A lot of animals eat acorns. I don't know if a Bigfoot would, but they probably would if they're living out there. 1 pound of fish, a pound of fish. So you just catch one little fish, a little 1 pound fish, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 calories. So, like 1 pound of insects. So if you're looking, you can pretty much eat anything. So if you're out there and you're finding bugs and crickets and grasshoppers and stuff like that, and you want to get a pound of them, you're looking at another 500 to 2,000 calories. So an insect larva, they're even more, up to 2,500 calories for a pound. A pound of termites is about 2,500 calories. A squirrel, you eat a whole squirrel, 500 to 800 calories in a squirrel, in most squirrels. A pound of deer meat, about 700 calories. 1 pound of like different types of roots, anywhere from 300 to 400 calories. So like, anybody, a lot of, I've known Native Americans, a lot of people have eaten root type, dug up, they know what kind of roots to eat, ones that don't make them sick, all that kind of stuff, they eat them. A pound of earthworms. I mean, something's digging around, you might be able to find a pound of them. I don't know, but maybe if you're out there for 2 or 3 hours digging in the dirt, I could some types of deer, I could go out here with a shovel and under some leaves, and there's so many friggin' gigantic night crawlers, I could easily find a pound of them in 5 minutes sometimes under some of the leaves and stuff. And you're looking at another 300 or 400 calories. Then I look at, like, if you're eating something, even like dead animals and all that stuff. So if you're able to eat dead animals, and like the bone marrow inside. So if you eat that inside of animals, so you say you kill the animal was able to kill a deer, and they were able to crack. I'm sure that they could probably, if they supposedly can throw rocks and stuff like that, I'm sure they could probably take a rock or something and smash up a bone to dig out the bone marrow. And a teaspoon of it, a tablespoon, excuse me, is 100 calories. So that's like, that'd be like one little scrape inside a bone. You got 100 calories. So these are just a few things that I was just looking up. I mean, there's tons of stuff in the woods to eat. I mean, this is not talking about any berries. This is not talking about any like just leaves. I don't know. They make it like apes and stuff eat a lot of greens and stuff like that. So there's not as many calories in that kind of stuff, but you eat enough of it, along with your other stuff, you build up, and you can pretty easily hit 500 calories through probably most of the year. When you live in a wild like that, you learn to figure out where at certain times of year, certain things come where you can eat them, and pretty much, I mean, except for maybe the dead of winter where maybe it's a lot less to eat, and we don't know. I mean, maybe they try to build up their fat much like a bear does. They eat a lot of calories in the fall so that they can hibernate, or so that they can make it through the winter. A lot of animals do that. Deer, a lot of animals do that because they know there's going to be lean times in the winter. So I would assume that something smart like a Bigfoot or whatever would do the same thing to build up their fat reserve so they can make it through the winter for the however many months of the really bad part of winter. It depends on where they're at, and I'm sure some of them probably migrate. If there's only one or two that are migrating, it's a lot easier. That may be when people see them. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, that was just what else was I going to talk about? How big they are, the deer. I was going to talk about people are always saying stuff about, why don't they ever find a body out in the woods? Okay, I looked this up because I've been in the woods a lot during especially my younger life. I stayed in the woods a lot, hunting and fishing and just hiking and stuff like that. I don't do it now because I can't walk that good, but I looked this up because I was like, I've been in the woods. I've never found. I've seen a couple of dead deer, but it's obvious that they were killed. They were killed by humans. It's obvious. They were gutted. A lot of times their heads are missing. The rest, they've been skinned. It's obvious. You can tell when a human has done something, and whereas if it just died by itself, like from old age or whatever, it's not going to be. I mean, yeah, animals are going to tear it apart and stuff, but I'm talking about. I've come upon some fresh kills, like somebody maybe just killed the deer hours earlier or a day earlier, and you can see where they pull out the guts and just left them there and stuff like that. But I've never found like a deer that I could say, okay, this deer probably died of old age. I've never seen that. Another thing I've got to thinking about, deer shed their antlers every year. I've never found any antlers in the woods. I mean, people find them. I mean, I know people do find them, but I've never seen any. I've never found any. They're quickly devoured by animals in the forest or whatever. They disappear pretty quickly. So, but anyway, I got to looking about bears. Okay, because people usually put a Bigfoot with a bear, and I looked that up, and they said a bear, as far as somebody finding a bear that hasn't been like run over or obvious things that's on the side of the road, it's been hit by something or whatever. Yeah, people find that stuff. But as far as like they said, people finding a dead bear, and this was I forgot, I was looking where can't remember where it was, but some big area or whatever. They've never had a report of anybody finding. And there's a lot of bears. There's like the ratio of bears is huge, and it's never been a recorded thing of anybody finding a dead bear that probably died of natural causes. Never there. And it said generally it doesn't. Most people have never seen a bear that's died of natural causes, and because a lot of animals kind of know when they're going to die, and I've read this before that a lot of times they'll go to some place and kind of like hide to die, and of course the other animals are gonna when something dies it tears them apart pretty quick, and then I've seen videos of like they'll have a deer staked down, and the bugs. It's like totally gone in like 2 or 3 days. Like you can't tell that was ever even there. Maybe a little bit of bones, but then the bones get scattered, and then they get chewed on by mice and everything. They love the calcium and stuff from them, and they're quickly devoured. Most all that stuff is, and most of it you just don't realize. A bone sticking out, it's like antlers. I was reading about antlers. They're kind of hard to spot because once they've been falling off or whatever, they get mixed in with the leaves, and they basically just look like a branch. So a lot of people, just bypass them and whatever. So I'm sure there's bones that do the same thing. People just don't realize they see them or whatever. But so I don't know. But I do have a thing where there's. Why hasn't somebody found something? But like I said, when you get to thinking about possibly how few there is and how long they don't die, they hardly, like, say they live for 1,000 years, sure, some of them are going to die at certain ages, whatever, but it's so rare that the possibility of seeing one is just, that's the reason I don't believe this crap where they think, there's got to be this, breeding population of 2,000 or 3,000 or more, 5,000 in the country and all this kind of stuff, for them to, and that's, they're going to be a bunch of inbreds and all this kind of stuff, even with that, and stuff. And like I said, I'm sure there's some that do breed, and because there's been reports of people seeing small ones and stuff like that, but so I'm sure it probably happens. But I'm just saying it's probably super rare, and it'd be like, if you like going out in this country, when you realize how big this country is and how much wild land there still is, there's a ton of wild land. Some of us has never been, humans has never stepped on, or very very little of it, and people have ever visited or been there. And when you think about, say 20 or 30 of them in the whole country, spread out over this country, how, it's literally like looking, probably worse than a needle in a haystack. You could probably find a needle in a haystack easier than you could find a Bigfoot, probably. Even though they're 9 foot tall or 8 foot tall or 7 foot tall or whatever you want to say, it's probably so hard to find one. Plus, animals that, a lot of animals, and I don't know about a Bigfoot, I have a feeling that if they're probably very aware of their surroundings, and also they're probably very good at camouflaging themselves, much like other animals. Just a hairy creature. It's like when somebody puts on a ghillie suit and is out there and they're standing still. It's almost impossible to find them. You pretty much have to step on them to find the dude in a ghillie suit if they're staying still. Now, when something's moving around, it's a lot easier to find. If something's on the move, is somewhat easier to see. But even that, something dark that blends in with the surroundings a lot, moving slowly or moving whatever, and it's very hard to see. You may see a glimpse of something, and you're like, where'd it go? And because it's like either hidden or you just can't see it moving no more because it's a lot of forest are I mean once you see about 10 or 15, 20 feet, you can't see no further. That's about it, So that's pretty close, So I don't know if something like that could possibly. There's people that they can cloak themselves and all that stuff. I don't know if they. I mean, I guess it's a possibility. I don't know. Like I said, I don't put nothing past nothing in science or what we don't know. Because there's so much things that we don't know. Really, I mean, we're just basically touching the very tip of you when you think about what science has discovered in the last couple hundred years or whatever. I mean, really, we're just barely even there as far as finding out things and stuff like that. About weird stuff like that. The whole thing with extraterrestrials and all this stuff. We're just guessing at it. I got thinking about this AI crap. The AI stuff. This is like. They don't know. Most of these experts, they can't tell you 5 years. They don't really know what's going to be like 5 years from now. They don't know. 5 years, 10 years from now, we may not even be here no more. AI may have taken over. We're thinking of the past. It's dissolved us or whatever's happened. We don't know. They can't tell you. They can't tell you for sure what it's going to do because they don't know. They have no idea generally what AI is going to be in 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever years, what will it be? What is it going to do? They can take guesses at it and stuff. That's about all they can do. And so when you think about that, this is something that they're basically building. Man has started up and is doing it, and they can't see what's going to be or what it's going to do. I mean, what it's doing right now, just in the last year or so, I went from seeing the videos and stuff where it was obvious it was AI to where it is getting like you can hardly tell the difference in some of this stuff now. I mean, it's like I can't tell the difference. It looks just like a person that talks, that moves or whatever. Used to, you could always look at kind of their fingers; they'd be all screwed up and stuff, and sometimes they still are. But it's getting better and better every day, in my opinion. So there's no telling what it'll be like in 5 years, 10 years. I mean, as much as it's grown over the last few years, there's no telling, and it's kind of scary, but that's what I'm saying. We don't know. We don't really know about what will be discovered in 10 years. Maybe AI will discover something that has to do with Sasquatch, Bigfoot. I don't know. It may figure it out. It may be able to unravel stuff. I don't know. But I'm just saying, you can't just like sit there and go, no, that's not that. There's no way. It's not. No way. It's a interdimensional creature. Well, you don't know that. You just no way. You can't say that. It's impossible for you to say that. Just because it's not happening now, it doesn't mean it's not going to. We're going to figure it out in the future, But and it's like we don't know if a Bigfoot or Sasquatch is like a chameleon, where they can kind of change the colors of their. Because I mean, people see them, white, whatever. It's because they're old or whatever. It may not be. Maybe it's because they can actually change the color of their fur, their hair, their fur, or whatever, to match surroundings. You don't know. It's impossible for you to know that they can't do it. Just because we don't see it today, we say, oh, a dog can't do that. A cat can't change its color. No, of course not. But we don't know about this because we don't know what it is. So you have to keep kind of an open mind. And I know people are going to be like, if I get enough people watching, they'll be like, this guy's crazy. There's no Bigfoots, I'm sure. Because every time I look at them, comments on anybody that talks about Bigfoot, I mean, they show a picture of a video, whatever it is. There are so many people that I think it's only about 25-30% of the population even believe that at all in a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. So a huge portion of it think it's just crap. And then a lot of people just don't care. They don't. I mean, a lot of people just go through life not caring about anything. they're like, oh, I don't know, I've never really looked into it. I don't know. So that's probably, I'll go tell probably 30% of them. They don't even, they couldn't even tell you nothing about it. You know, they probably don't. What's the Gimlin, Patterson Gimlin film? I don't even know what you're talking about. Patty, what is that? They're like, they don't even know what it is, you know. And but anyway, that's I guess that's about all I want to talk about. This video's went a pretty long time, which I kind of wanted to make a video a long time for a long video, because stuff I keep reading and a lot of the videos I'm watching now from people that I like, they're putting out like 30, 40-minute videos now, and they're doing really good. And so from what stuff people I heard people talk about is you can do the shorts, or you make really long form videos, and be real, blah blah blah, what else kind of stuff. So that's the reason I just thought, well, I'm just gonna get on and talk about this, and if people don't like it, they don't like it. People love it, they don't love it. If I don't get no views, I don't get no views, whatever. I'm just doing it, trying it, and like I said, I may make more of these because I like talking about stuff. I mean, Bigfoot's been one of those things I've always enjoyed ever since I was a little kid. I remember going to a movie. I don't remember what the movie was, but I specifically remember at the beginning of it, they showed the Patterson Gimlin film. I didn't even know what it was talking about. Bigfoot, what is that? I think this was like, I was like maybe 8 or 9 years old. My dad, he took us to some Western or something. I don't know what it was, but at the beginning of it, they showed like a 15, 20-minute discussion about this film and showed the video and all that stuff. Of course, you know, I was like, that's fascinating. What is that? So from that point on, I started always kind of looking for that kind of stuff. I mean, you know, I've always watched a lot of Bigfoot shows. I don't like, some of it's just so fake. I can't stomach it, you know. I get I still watch the Finding Bigfoot because I don't know, I find it entertaining in a way because some of it is so stupid, but I get so tired. They'll be out there in the dark. I know I'm getting off the subject here, but I got to tell you anyway. They'll be out there in the dark. They got their cameras on and all that stuff, you know, and they'll be like, "Did you hear that? That was a tree. That was a tree fell down in the woods. A Bigfoot pushed it down." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Is this a joke?" I mean, do you know I have 2 trees in my yard? Two trees, a pine tree and I don't know, some kind of oak tree or something. I couldn't tell you, since in the 6 years that I've lived here in this house, how many limbs have come crashing down out there. Some of them are small, and some of them are fairly big. Now, none of the trees have fallen yet, thank goodness, but I've been out in the woods a lot, and I found, you know, there's a lot of trees that are, you know, falling over eventually, because, I mean, eventually most trees lose their limbs when they die naturally. Most of them will, and you'll drop their limbs here and there. And when you're out in the dark, in the middle of the night, where everything's super quiet, there's no birds basically because the birds are asleep. You know, there may be some creatures running around out there at night, but when you hear just a limb fall out in the woods, it sounds like a crash, and you're like, "Oh, I can't." I've never been in the woods and thought, I hear a limb fall. Oh, that is a Bigfoot doing that. No, I'm just like, oh, a limb fell, a widowmaker or whatever just fell, or just a tree fell out in the woods. But every time they do that, they're like, it was a Bigfoot. It was a Bigfoot, you know. Or when they say something was slung at them or threw at them or whatever. Yeah, if you was to be out there and all of a sudden a rock comes and about hits you in the head and boom, lands on the ground, and you're like, okay, something's chunking rocks. There's only 2 things. I mean, well, technically only one thing that can throw rocks, and that's man. Monkeys and apes can sling crap at you, but so I assume something like that could throw a rock. But we don't naturally have. There's no monkeys or orangutans or anything like that lives in this country other than zoos, or maybe some that have escaped from zoos. I don't know, but nothing's going to be that other than man. Now, is there a man out there slinging a rock at you to try to scare you off? Quite possibly. Throwing a stick at you? Quite possibly. Who knows? But you can't rule out the thing unless you see the person that it wasn't not something else, you know. A rock just doesn't generally fall out of a tree. Now, now for them to be out there and they hear something and they can't, I don't see a rock. Well, it could have just been an acorn or a pine cone or whatever. I mean, a pine cone falling and hit you on the freaking head, kind of hurts. I've been hit by them before. So, yeah, you're like, where did it go? It may have bounced off and you're in the dark. You can't see it. It's laying on the ground. All you see is a pine cone. You don't know if that was that there before or what, then you're like, well, I don't see a rock either. What was it, Oh, it had to be a rock, That's what they do. And it was definitely a rock being slung after you. Or they hear wood knocks in the woods at night. I mean, I don't know, when they're out there banging on a tree, knocking, and they hear something back. Of course, most of the time on the videos, I can never hear what they're supposedly hearing. But if there is something knocking back, it could quite as best be a man or human or whatever, but it also could just be a limb breaking or something just at the right time, snapping. Oh, it sounds like a wood knock. Who's to say if that's that or that? So I'm not saying that maybe they do communicate by doing that. I don't know. I can't rule it out, but I'm just saying a lot of the stuff I think on those shows they do is for dramatic. They can't. It's hard to keep a show going for however many seasons Finding Bigfoot was on without having some evidence. They basically never really found too much on that show for however many years that was on. A few things. There was a couple of footprints I think they found and stuff like that, but most of it, not much proof, Now I've seen some other shows where there's been a little more proof, some, DNA they couldn't explain, hair follicles sometimes they can't really explain. It doesn't match a known creature. There's some things like that. Because if it doesn't match something, well, that means it's something. But it's like DNA, it can be very close to human. It's like a monkey or ape. It's like a very tiny part of a gene or whatever is the only difference between them and us. As far as the DNA link chain or whatever. It's very very close to us. And so if you find some blood on something and they do a test on it and it's like, okay, well it's not an ape. We know what ape DNA, we know what human is, so it's something else. But they don't know what it is. So for most people are like, well, that's no proof. Yeah, it's no proof because they don't know what it is, unknown. So you can't say, oh, it's a Bigfoot. No, it could be some kind of snail or some crap. Who knows? I don't know. Some snail crossed whatever and left some DNA that we haven't discovered yet. I don't know. But if it is something that's, it is something, but I don't know whether I'm just quit talking about this now and just shut up or what, but anyway, so I'm probably just going to shut up here. And if you stayed this long and watched this idiot trying to spill his weirdness out here to the world, then thank you. And if you liked it, then like and subscribe and share it or whatever if you want to. I'm not going to get mad at you for doing that. And, if you want to leave I don't care. Because I understand people don't believe things. I understand that. And a lot of people don't believe what they can't put their finger on or whatever. They can't, oh, that's not that. So I understand that. And, leave your comment that you don't believe it or whatever. That's fine. I don't care. But now when you get ugly and start calling me names and, cussing me out and stuff like that, then I'm probably going to block your ass and probably report your ass. So for doing that. But I'm pretty lenient with that kind of stuff. Most of the time I'm like, I just tell people, I've told people a lot of this, and actually I've gotten subscribers from this. When they don't like something I put out, I'll just tell them in the comments, I'm like, they'll have some ugly stuff. I say, so does this mean that I can expect you not to be subscribing to my channel? And a lot of them will actually laugh back, and say, that's pretty funny. Nobody's ever said that. I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to you. That was funny. I think there's been one guy that said that, and I think he's been with me for years now. and I think he did that. I don't talk to him. He don't comment too much anymore. Hardly nobody watches or comments on my videos hardly, but ever since TikTok came out and so much other junk, the algorithm, I don't know, has changed with them. And I mean, I never got a ton of views anyway, but I've had some videos that do pretty good. But anyway, I better quit talking. This is almost 50 minutes. Actually, it's fixing to roll 50 minutes. Now, I'll probably edit some of this, but I'm probably not going to edit a lot of it because I've been rambling the whole time and there's not much to edit out. So maybe the ending and the beginning. So anyway, that's it. So anyway, y'all be good, like and subscribe, and come up with your theories about Bigfoot and put them down there if you got something. If you got something different, just, man, let me hear about it. I don't know. That'd be cool. Make your own video and tag me or put a link to it in my comments so I can watch and say, hey, Hawk, man, I made a video about Bigfoot. Can you go check mine out or whatever? Yeah, I'll go check it out and see, because I'm always interested in stuff, especially this subject. I mean, a lot of other stuff. I've always been interested in UFO stuff and like a lot of cryptids. Like some of them I think it's just far out weird, stupid crap, but some of these things they come up with. But a lot of it I think, like the Rougarou in Louisiana, the Rougarou. There's the stories behind it, but I think it's probably, if there is a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, that's probably what they're saying, and they just the people in the southern Louisiana just came up with their name for it, and that's just what it is. It's like in another part of the world or whatever, they got their name for a certain animal, and they say, it looks kind of like a dog face, blah blah blah, whatever. It's probably all the same creature. It's just seeing kind of different angles or whatever, and they see it or whatever, and so it just gets passed down from that too. So when people get a thing in their mind of what something looks like, they're like, they see something out there and they're like, it's got an ape-looking face, and it may not. I mean, it'd be maybe more humanoid looking. I don't know. But they just do that. We have a tendency to want to put a face on a face, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I gotta quit talking. Anyway, like and subscribe, junk all like that. Anyway, and I'll hopefully talk to y'all in another video that may be long like this one. I don't know. But anyway, see you later. Bye bye.